Good morning, Elizabeth from Pilates on Grand, and just wanted to go over the short spine with you. This is a fantastic exercise in so many ways, and one of the genius things that Joe Pilates came up with was the spring load and straps. Those two things together are fantastic. So this exercise really becomes the, I call it kind of a full back line stretch, and really gives you the opportunity to focus on so many different things: your calves, your hamstrings, pelvic position, and of course fantastic spinal segmentation. So maybe you're doing all of this stuff already, but there are just a couple things that maybe might be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe I can just kind of see what that feels like the next time I do the exercise. So anyhow, 2 springs on the carriage, just kind of taking a moment to focus on the contact points, really important. Base of the skull, back of the head, T12, okay, so it's kind of mid-thoracic, right around the rib cage, good contact there, and the sacrum. And just a little bit of contact through the lower back, making sure I'm not either pushing down or I'm not pulling up. So it's kind of somewhere in between, but again, really good recruitment around the T12 zone. Okay, so with the legs straight, the first part, I guide the legs up, making sure the pelvis doesn't really change position to start. So I have this really nice eccentric load, and I can feel that in the backs of my knees. So that's the calves to start the stretch, and then I go further, it's the hamstrings. And once I'm about here, I don't want to use the momentum, or I don't want to kind of use the carriage too much to pull me up, so I want to think of really recruiting the abdominal wall. The pelvis goes into a posterior shift. I just don't want that to be excessive, and then I think of lifting those segments one by one, and not too high. No need to do that. Okay, so I'm hinging a little bit towards the frame, bending the knees. So now basically the legs are relaxed, and the stretch moves right to the kind of the sacral area and the lower back. So now, coming back down, I want to focus on segmenting from top to bottom. So I like to start by sliding the base of the skull back, and then I begin to draw the sternum in the rib cage and then the abdominal wall. So I like to cue this as think of moving the sacrum further and further away from the base of the skull. So you want to kind of imagine that those 2 contact points become more distant. Coming back to the carriage now, I recover in neutral position. Again, I'm not excessively pulling. I don't want to pull the lower back up. It's just kind of shifting the weight load, but a strong contact point at that T12 zone, just keeping that. So now the weight shifts back to the sacrum, and then I'm ready for my next repetition. Okay, so the legs are straight, back to neutral, checking on those 3 contact points, they're strong. And the second version that I like to use is starting with a leg circle. So now very involved hamstrings and adductors through the exercise as opposed to the first one. So this is a nice controlled circle, a little tippy there with my hips today. So I make sure I only go to a range that I have control of. I don't just whip the legs out to the side. At about 180 degrees, I'm going to start to recruit again the thoracic flexors, and I just come up, reach high, nice and high. So big stretch again, calves, hamstrings. Breathing in deeply. I have my roll down. I'm doing the same thing. I start right at the base of the skull. So I slide the base of the skull back, and then I'm segmenting through the thoracic spine, pull the ribs in, passing through the lumbar. This is the challenging part here, to come to neutral first, and then I start to go and hit extension. That's a hard thing to do. So a lot of times I'll just let the client put their hips down completely, kind of in one chunk. So back to neutral position, big stretch hamstrings, calves. I make sure good contact around T12, and then I finish the exercise extension.